Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billah min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man sara sabilihi ila yawmiddin amma ba'd. So today, inshallah, we'll continue with the hadith that we had started covering last week. So the hadith that is the ninth hadith in this series of Imam An-Nawawee rahimahullah, where he discussed concerning the hadith that mentioned ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوا وما أمرتكم به فافعلوا منه ما استطعتم الحديث. So we had started discussing the hadith where we discussed concerning the narrator of the hadith, who was a Sahabi, Abu Hurairah anhu, who we discussed concerning matters regarding his life, and of those things regarding his name. So his name, according to what have been the view of many of the ulama, that his name is Abdul Rahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi rahimahullah ta'ala. Then we discussed, we discussed concerning a takhrij of the hadith, regarding some of the sources of this hadith, regarding concerning, and of those ones, Bukhari and Muslim and others who have narrated this particular hadith. Then also we discussed concerning, start discussing the hadith by way of the meaning of this hadith. Then we went in to discuss what had been mentioned by Ibn Uthaymeen, or some of the ulama, of them Ibn Uthaymeen, regarding of those general benefit that can be taken from the hadith. So we'll be continuing concerning taking of the fawahid that can be taken from this hadith. So of those things that they discuss concerning the hadith in a more general meaning of the hadith, that of those things that are mentioned regarding this particular hadith, that they mention regarding concerning that of those things that can be taken from this hadith, that here in the hadith it mentioned concerning that with the Prophet Islam mentioned that the matter concerning nahitukum anhu, that if I have forbid upon you things, fajtanibu, then you should avoid those things. So they discuss concerning this nahi, this form of the Prophet Islam forbidding of something to be done, and that what is expected, that we should avoid it completely. So they mentioned regarding an-nahi, so regarding concerning things that we have been forbidden in Islam by way of the Prophet Islam or by the text of Islam, that one, that these an-nahi, they fall into two areas, they fall into two categories, or naw'an, they fall into two categories, naw'an, of those things that are forbidden, is those things which is nahi at-tahrim, and nahi at-tahrimi. So those things that are forbidden completely. So those things that are completely forbidden in Islam. Where they mention that what is meant by an-nahi tahrimi, where it mentioned that state concerning ma kana talab al-kaf anhu or fihi jazman, where the person is completely forbidden to approach that thing. So an-nahi at-tahrimi, where the person is being requested to completely avoid that thing, or the person being commanded that he should completely avoid that thing. That's concerning an-nahi at-tahrimi. And they mention concerning that this, what is the consequence of this, or the effects of this, is regarding yuthab at-tariq al-muharram, imtithalan, that the person is rewarded for complying with this. So the person who comply by not carrying out that act, then that person is rewarded for this. He is rewarded for this. So they mention az-zina wa sariqa wa qatl an-nas zulman. Then all of this, if the person was to comply by not doing of these things, not to carry out these things, then, and the person with the intention of avoiding of these things, which are niyyah, then the person is rewarded for such act, for not doing those things. The second type of an-nahi, things that are forbidden in Islam, that they mention, an-nahi karahiyah, an-nahi al-karahiyah. So nahi al-karahiyah, where they mention that ma kana talab al-kaf, where the person is required, the person is being commanded or requested to avoid a thing غير الجازم, by way of that thing that the person غير الجازم, that to avoid something, but not way of the person that fully to avoid that thing. So the person is being that is not completely being to avoid that particular thing. Where they mention a person by this, they mention yuthaba tariq al-makruh imtithal, where a person that is rewarded for not doing that thing, but also there's no sin if the person was to do of that thing. So la yu'aqib, that a person not falling into something which is sinful for doing that thing. So that's concerning the difference between both. So an-nahi at-tahrimi, the person is forbidden from doing that thing without restriction, unconditionally. And the person, by not doing that thing, then the person is rewarded. And if the person was to do that thing, then the person will be sinful. He'll be doing something which is a transgression. As for an-nahi at-karahiyah, where the person also is being commanded to avoid certain things, but not by way of with some allowance. Then I mentioned that if the person avoid that thing, then he is rewarded. And if the person was to fall into that thing, was to carry out that thing by way of ikhtiyariyah, by way of choice, then there's no sin upon the person. There's no sin upon that person. That's concerning, they mentioned regarding an-nahi being of that two types. So of the ulama, at times they may refer to as concerning an-nahi, that concerning this type of nahi al-karahiyya, al-nahi tanzili. So nahi at-tanzili, so also it referred to as such. So nahi tanzil or tanzih, that also it is referred to as such. Then also they mentioned, so that's concerning of those things. And they mentioned regarding the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith, that when he mentioned that to avoid something, fajtanibu, is a command that a person should completely avoid that thing. So there's also the person should completely avoid that thing. So they mentioned regarding that when the person is told to avoid something or something is forbidden, then what is expected is that a person completely avoid that thing. The one could completely avoid that thing. And the Prophet ﷺ, the language that is used regarding things that are forbidden, so also you find that a language or certain language that are used of those language or those words that indicate that that thing is forbidden, haram. The words like ijtinab, when a person knows to avoid something that indicate that also that give the meaning that that thing is forbidden, or da'u, that person to leave that thing, or atraku, or for the person to avoid that thing. So all these are words that indicate that something is forbidden. Ijtinab, da'u, another way of saying leaving that thing, or taraku, or for the person to leave away that thing. So all of these are terms that indicate that that act, it is something which is forbidden. That thing is forbidden. So that's concerning of those things regarding so that language. The Prophet ﷺ used regarding to leave that thing is for a person to leave it completely. The ulama, they mentioned that there's at times certain exceptions regarding certain things that are forbidden. So things that are forbidden, you might find certain exceptional cases where the person may be able to partake of that thing to some degree. So they mentioned regarding concerning that as a general qaida that is there regarding concerning ad-dururat to be al-mahdurat. So concerning ad-durura yubih al-mahdurat. So in case of necessity, then also becomes those things which is forbidden becomes mubah. Those things that are for in the case of necessity, then those things that are said to be haram, then they become allowed due to the case of necessity. But also they mention those things of necessity. What is classed as necessity? They mention dururat, of those things that durura, that they will mention that according to the fuqaha, that they will consider that those things are, if the person will lose of life. So those things are said to be durura. If it's the case of, if the person not doing of that thing, then it will mean the person will lose his life. Or it could mean the person losing the loss of limb, so the loss of life, or the loss of limb. Or it could, if the person is ill, could make a person become very ill. It could increase the person illness, make the person case become more severe. So in those cases, then those are a case that will deem the person to be in a case of durura, a case of necessity. And also they mentioned concerning that those cases are the person with the loss of that thing, then the person unable to function, live his life properly. So the person without those things, that a person will not live his life properly, and create a lot of difficulty on the person, with a person close to being destroyed. So also with this, those cases of exception regarding things that are haram, that at times that also those things are considered to be durura, those cases of necessity. Also they mention ad-durura tuqaddar biqadriha. Also with another rule that is to be applied regarding case of necessity, that a person case is said to be a case of necessity based upon those factors: loss of life, loss of bodily limbs, or the person case become more severe regarding illness will become more severe and more intense. Also the case where the person unable to do without, living without that thing. The person unable to live without that thing, and rather it will create a lot of difficulty upon the person that is unable to bear. Difficulties that is unable to bear. Also in case of durura, that also they mention ad-durura tuqaddar biqadriha. Also in the case of necessity, also necessity that they're only to what is needed. So with things that are durura, according to what is needed, to the extent, to the limits that the person need of that thing. So each thing also have a certain restriction. So in case of necessity, the person it is not open for the person to do and to take whatever he wants, but it to be restricted with that which is needed, to what it is needed, other than, and the person not to go beyond that boundary. So that's concerning those rules pertaining to durura. That also they mention, so you find the ulama, they discuss those things as exception regarding that in general, haram, the person should avoid it. The person only can partake of haram only in cases of necessity. Then also they mention, the next matter that he mentions is regarding, as Islam state, وَمَا أُمِرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُ مِنْهُ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ أو فَافْعَلُوا مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. That the thing that we have instructed you to do, the thing that we have requested upon you to carry out, then you should do of those things according to your ability. So they mention concerning al-amr, as Islam in this case now is giving a command, instructions regarding carrying out a certain thing for the person to fulfill certain things. They mention here regarding al-amr, as they define al-amr concerning al-amr talab al-ala mimman huwa adna minhu fi'lan ma. That what is said to be an amr in the Sharia, according to the ulama, that is an amr according to the ulama, that they see it as al-amr is where someone is being instructed to carry out something, but the person given the instruction is of an higher status. So al-amr is where the person given the command is said to be of an higher degree than the person who is given that instruction. So that's concerning that they refer to as an amr. So fihi isti'lal, where the person who is given the command, his position is that of of higher than the person who's given the command. So for example, I mentioned that an adult given a command to a child, that a form of that's considered to be an amr because he's of a higher status. But if a child given an adult, the parent, command, then that's not said to be an amr, because the child is of a lower degree than that of his parents, of a higher status. So that they mentioned those things. So also the second matter regarding al-amr, that also the siga, the type of wording that will indicate that this is something which is, you have been commanded to carry out something. Of those, if'al, direct command to do of this thing. So words concerned that are indicating that the person has been instructed to fulfill something. So if'al, and the words that are taken from this, the words that are taken from this. So anything that indicate in the language of fi'l al-amr, something which is a command, then it will indicate that this thing is something to be done. Then also they mention regarding concerning al-amr, as for the hukum, or what is required, then it is, if the person is being commanded to do something, then it becomes yajib ityan bil ma'mur bihi. Then the person, it is expected from the person now is expected to comply and to fulfill and carry out that instruction. So when a person commanded to do something, then what is expected is that the one who is being commanded, for them to comply and to carry out the instruction that they were given. That instruction that is being given, then as for the person who carries out that instruction, complies, then the person yuthab alayh, then the person will be rewarded because he's complying with the instruction, with the command. And he will not held accountable for, so the accountability will be removed, and any form of sin will be removed because he has complied with the instruction accordingly. those instructions that are given, that they can fall into being that which is wajib, that which is a must to be done, or could be mustahab, preferred. So that instruction can be fall into different categories, where the instruction could be by way of complying. It is something which is wajib. It's a must to be done. It is something, it's a must to be done. Or, for example, of that concerning as-salah. So instruction regarding salat is by way of that complying would be the person complying, but concerning it is wajib, so the person needs to comply. Or that instruction could be by something which is mustahab. It's something which is encouraged to be done, but it is not wajib to be done. It's not a must to be done, but rather it is more preferred that a person comply with this. So of those concerning, for example, as-siwak, ma salat. So the person using siwak, clean of the teeth before the salat or after wudu, then those things are mustahab. It is not wajib. So that's concerning those matters regarding al-amr wa nahi. Also with those matters that the Prophet ﷺ concerning instruct or concerning, we have nusus ash-shar'iyya. So if we have nusus by way of the Quran or by the Sunnah, giving certain instructions regarding instruction by things to be done or commands, things not to be done, things that are forbidden. Are those things to be understood that it is something which is a continuous thing that a person have to comply with? Clear that what I'm asking, what we're discussing? So if a person is given an instruction, a command, or something forbidden upon us, is these things required consistently? Or for the person to do it once, or something which is continuous? So command, do this, or not do this. Is it understood that I must do this all the time? Or is just just to do it on a one-off basis? Clear? Don't do this, or do this. Don't do it now and that's it, and tomorrow I can do it. Or do this thing, do it now, but tomorrow I don't have to do it, because today I comply with your instruction immediately. So that's an issue that is discussed between the ulama. So these matters that they discuss concern these matters, that so in most part, that instructions that they expected to be done continuously. Also things that are forbidden also continuously, unless there's something to say otherwise. Until there's something to say otherwise. So regarding concern regarding salat, continuous. Regarding concerning forbidden prohibition of zina is continuous, of riba is continuous. So those things are continuous. Also the next matter they discuss between the ulama, the fuqaha or the usuliyin, regarding that amr wa nahi ala for or tarahi. Al amr wa nahi, are these things to be the person to carry it out immediately, or you're allowed to delay those things? So if you're commanded to do something, is it a command that do it at some time, not necessarily now? Or you're to comply immediately, immediate compliance, or you're allowed to delay that thing? So also those things it varies. At times it may be compliance immediate, or at times you can delay. So regarding concerns to the ulama, for example, they have a discussion on some of those matters. They have discussion regarding at what point it is required to be done immediately, and under what circumstance the person allowed to delay. Under what circumstance the person is allowed to delay. For example, salah, isha, or salah. So it's salat. Is the person expected to carry out salat immediately, or he can delay it but within the time of Salatul Isha, for example? So you have a time, within a certain time span that he can carry out that salat. For example, the time span that to carry out Salatul Isha, he has 4 hours. Is the person to carry out immediate, or if he chooses to delay it, which of them is still complying? So they mention so with matter regarding commands, it's expected that it is understood that he has to do it immediately, or he can delay it because he has time that he can delay it. So the salawat, they mention, it's preferred for it to be done immediately, but if he delays it, then he still has complied with the instruction regarding praying the salah. So that's concerned those matters. And they mention, for example, al-hajj. Is hajj to be done fawran or taraki? Is the person allowed to, if he can afford, he comply with all the rules or all the conditions? He can afford, can afford it, he's physically able, everything is in place. Is the person now must perform hajj next year, next hajj? To delay it after, then the person have done something sinful. So that's what they discuss concerning tarahi or for. So you have some ulama all concerned, for example, hajj is to be done immediately if the person comply and fulfill all the criteria. And to delay it later on for the following year, then the person have done something wrong, according to those who say it is to be done immediately. So you have that discussion between the ulama regarding al-command, al-amr. Is it to be done immediate, or is he allowed some leniency in delaying that thing? So you have that discussion between the ulama and those concerning ilm, usul, al-fiqh. Also of those things that they discuss concerning is those things that Islam he command regarding, command also that they have certain commands also, as Ila mentioned, based upon al-istita'a, based upon the person's ability. So it commands of things to be done, according to the person's ability, meaning that if he's able, it has to be done. And if he is able, so according to the person's ability, in the sense of if there's anything there's nothing that stops him to carry out that act, then it should be done. But according to the person's ability by way of the other condition that may be applied to that act, As mentioned, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the best of your ability. As Islam, so that in regards to, with Amr, is it always based upon a person's ability? Or that ability is based upon other conditions? Those abilities based upon other factors. So that's concerning Al-Amr, where there's some room where the person has some allowance to maybe not carry out that thing immediately. By way of the person might have some reason that he may not carry out that thing immediately. Then they discuss regarding Al-Amr, those things that are instructions to be carried out, and things that are prohibitions, things that are not to be done. Which of them is more required? Which of them ashad? Which of them is more severe? The person not doing that thing that he was commanded, or the person doing that thing that he was forbidden. So which is worse? Doing something that you are told to be expected to be done, or something that is forbidden? Doing something which is you're not supposed to do, or not doing something you're supposed to do. Clear? Which is worse? So the person of an act, the person, for example, salah, he didn't pray. Is that worse than riba? So tarikus salah and riba, which is worse? So some ulama mentioned that, so you have a discussion between the ulama. So they mentioned that as some consider tarikus salah because it's a command, then not doing it, and some of those commands could be an act of kufr. So if tarikus salat, the consequence of not doing it is that a person could leave Islam, that it becomes something severe. And I mentioned that Adam alayhi salam, not Adam, that Iblis, that he was removed from Jannah. What was the reason? Not that the Lord said that he didn't comply with an instruction. So he was commanded to do certain things, but he did not do that thing. So that means so you have those things that they fact concerning at what point which becomes more severe. At what point which become more severe. So at times, leaving away something which is an instruction that's severe, the consequence is severe. And at times, that doing something is haram also can be very severe. So it varies. Eh?
But we can also argue that both sides here, there's an injunction to basically stay away from living solar, for example, and living riba. So you understand what I'm saying?
Repeat.
We can also argue that there's an injunction to leave, staying away from solar, and
An injunction to leave, staying away from salat.
we are enjoying from we're enjoying from not living solar, for example, especially the middle one. There's an injunction in Quran like that, for example.
If they have specific salat, you understand, in the sense of what is afdal. Nam, we send salat in general regarding the compulsory 5 salat, not a particular salah. Nam, so the instruction regarding concern that's another person not praying at all. Nam, so the command is not to pray, the command is to pray. So you find the command in concern, you find that most of the command, you understand, in most parts that the person to establish salah. But then you have certain texts that can say, so the severity of not leaving salah. And some of those texts also, some of the ulama understand it to be to the degree where to the degree of the person fall into kufr. Nam, but the original command is to establish the salah. Nam, so you find that so other things are there to kind of somewhat as a form of encouraging the person and cautioning the person of the severity of not establishing the salah. So those things are there to kind of somewhat to reinforce praying. To reinforce praying. So you have that discussion between the ulama regarding which of them is more of a higher degree. So from that, so they mentioned regarding concerning the hadith of those things that he mentioned, alayhi salam, regarding that those matters that, then he mentioned that of those people that were destroyed, as he mentioned, إنما فإنما أهلك الذين من قبلكم كثرت مسائلهم. Then he mentioned that of those people that precede before you, that they were destroyed. So destruction, ahlaka, by way of they were destroyed regarding their dunya wal akhirah. And even more severe, al akhirah. So those people concerned that those people they were destroyed because of those people that their dunya and also their akhirah. Some people that their destruction may be in this dunya, but they still owe to their akhirah. Nam. So it mentioned regarding concern, then he mentioned that ahlak regarding ad-dunya wal akhirah. And they mentioned alladhina min qablikum, that is in reference to first and foremost concerning most texts regarding in reference to those people before us are the Yahud and Nasara. So in most texts that the first amongst those who are included are taken to be those people who came before us are Yahud and Nasara. So you find that many stuff when it talks about not looking at the people before you in relation to al-Yahud wal Nasara. And others mention that others then follow concerning the nation of the Anbiya before. The nations concerning Yahud and Nasara, but also other of the Anbiya who came and their stories were made mention to us. So look to those people as to what were of the reason of their destruction, that excessiveness in questioning of certain things. So in most part, regarding concerning that الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلُكُمْ is in relation to al-Kitab, al-Yahud, wal-Nasara. Then also it mentions regarding concerning that of those things that were of the causes for their destruction, that excessive questioning. So this concerning that these questions regarding that ask of certain questions that led to their destruction regarding that those questions were not questions that needed to be asked. There was no need for those questions. There was no need for those type of questions. Or ta'annut, where people were being somewhat a bit overburdensome regarding their question. Nam, so a question where it said, no, there's no fruits to be gained from those questions. Or people didn't act upon, there's no action to be taken from those questions. Or people asked the question but didn't act according to them. Didn't act according to them. So that's a part of those are included concerning those excessive questioning. Aywa. So as we mentioned before, regarding of excessive questioning could be taken regarding question, there is no food, there's no benefit to be taken from them. There's no haja, there's no need for those questions. Also regarding matters that is things that are just in the person's mind. Things that are in the mind, or things that haven't occurred. And at least possibility, those things will occur. So those questions, a person can somewhat avoid those type of questions. Then also he mentioned regarding concern that, as for question regarding, as I mentioned concerning ahkam su'al. So you have certain matter ulama discussed concerning ahkam as-su'al, rules relating to questions. There are ahkam that they fall into different ahkam, in a sense of question fall into different levels, different ahkam. So of those questions that may be wajib to be asked. Questions that are wajib to be asked. So regarding the person understanding the things that he needs for him to apply his deen. So, and that may vary one person to another. But knowing those things, asking of things that the person needs for him to function, regarding the basic function of Islam, those things, the person is a must for those things to ask. So the person of confusion about the basic things of Islam, then he should seek clarity regarding his basic belief and also the basic ahkam of Islam. Then to ask those questions, then it is something which is wajib. So the one who doesn't know should ask. The one who does not know, it's just those things are either at times fardul ayn, where that person, the individual, need to know those things for himself, for them to function regarding the basic thing regarding their deen and dunya. Knowing the basic thing regarding their deen and dunya, regarding the boundary regarding halal and haram for that person. Those things that they should do, that they need to know, and those things that are not to do, the person need to know those basic things, and that is wajib al-ayniyah. And it showed that at times that questions are permissible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned fas'alu ahli dhikr in kuntum la ta'lamun. So it shows that at times asking question is something which is praiseworthy. So concern those things that a person need to know that you do not know, that have a great impact, would have an impact, a severe impact on a person's life, regarding concerning knowing of his deen and the things of the halal and the haram of the dunya, those things should be asked. They mentioned regarding concerning that a general question that shows regarding that seeking of knowledge is something which is praiseworthy and that require at times asking question. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that it states, Talabatul ilm faridatun ala kulli muslim. Tasma the haditha, tasma'u, that I mentioned, Talabatul ilm faridatun ala kulli muslim. That seeking of knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim. That hadith, narrated by Ibn Majah, Al-Bazzar, Abu Yala, Tabarani, Bayhaqi, Khatib al-Baghdadi, and many others. The hadith of Anas bin Malik. So the hadith of Anas bin Malik, Talabatul ilm faridatun ala kulli muslim. That hadith somewhat is of those hadith that is used concerning, there's some aspect of seeking of knowledge that is wajib upon every Muslim. So some degree, there's a certain degree of knowledge that is compulsory upon every Muslim based upon this hadith, and show the encouragement regarding the virtue of seeking of knowledge. But with this hadith, even though hadith is well known and popular amongst the masses, seeking of knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim. But the hadith, with all these different narrations, so that hadith, as I said, the hadith of Anas bin Malik, also you find Abu Hurairah and others who have narrated the hadith, but that hadith, you have Jabir, Hudayfa, Hussein ibn Ali, Abu Hurairah, many who have narrated from the Sahaba, who have narrated hadith, that hadith. But all the narrations are weak. All the narrations of the hadith is weak. And some of the ulama have mentioned, some have mentioned that Suyuti is authenticated hadith based upon all the different narrations of the hadith. So when you gather all those hadith together, it gives it strength. But even though each of them have their own individual separate weakness. But he mentioned that all together, combined together, they are strengthened After the adhan.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
So that hadith, that's aside as a fa'idah, something to be looked into. We said that hadith, Talabatul ilm, faridatun ala kulli Muslim. Talabatul ilm, or Talabatul ilm, farida, that seeking of knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim. We mentioned the hadith of many, from many various sahabas, or many sahabas have narrated that hadith. We mentioned that all the ulama agrees that all the narrations of that hadith, that they're weak. So every narration of Abu Hurairah, Anas, narration of Hussein, the narration of Jabir, that all of them, that they're weak individually. So based upon this, some of the ulama, that they hold that if you were to put all those hadith together, they will strengthen each other. That's a view taken by some. So you find that some of authentic hadith, and amongst them they mention that with hadith, which is somewhat said hadith which is well known, and mentioned repeatedly by many. They mention concerning the hadith that the first person, and that's something to be researched. The first person to authenticate this hadith is Suyuti, and Suyuti died 911. Suyuti died 911 Hijri. But before him, this hadith was well known. The hadith was somewhat known, but he was of some mention that he was the first one to authenticate a hadith. No one before him did so. And then you find of contemporaries who kind of somewhat, like Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, also authenticated a hadith. But before Suyuti, was at the 9th century, 911, no one did anyone before authenticate that hadith. In the sense of, if no one before authenticate the hadith. And there's something said, if you find a masala being discussed, or a matter being discussed, and you find out one of the ulama of more contemporary time, latter time, of other particular view, but you find that those before him had a different stance, then the matter needs to be looked into carefully. The matter needs to be looked into carefully. How is those before say something different from what the one who came after is saying? Why is he saying something contrary to those before him? So no one before authenticated it. That has been known, so it needs to be looked into. Is that the reality? Did no one before authenticate this hadith? And if no one did, how is it that he came and authenticated? And then for us to accept it. Because the rules are one and the same. So either the rules are somewhat clear. So what, you understand? So said that, so he's applying a rule which is an established rule. That hadith, if it is weak, that can be strengthened with other weak hadiths. But it's a general rule, but how it is applied is to know what's the level of weakness in this hadith. So not just any hadith which is weak. It can be strengthened by another hadith. That's not the rule. Is a certain hadith of a certain type, category, that is the rules applied to them. Clear? So the thing is, how did someone of latter time pass a judgment that was not made by those before? And we can't claim that they were less knowledge. knowledgeable than he was.
He would be deemed the ones before Sheikh.
Exactly. Anyone before the ulama of hadith. So the ulama of hadith.
Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, and the like.
Now that after them, concern is you find concern is that at that time, at time you must say that after Ahmed and Hanbal, of those people, sometimes we said people who would grade hadith and speak about hadith. So you find that Abu Hanifa, not that much. Imam Shafi, to some extent. You understand, Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Ali ibn Madini, Imam Bukhari, Ibn Rajab. You understand, those people, even Ibn Hajar, Al-Asqalani, you find many of those names. What was their take on that hadith? Because some of them will have many books that goes in many volumes. They have put an emphasis on gathering hadith and speaking about them. So those ones who add that, who have done those type of work and research, Ibn Hajar, Ibn Rajab, Ibn Abdul Hadi, and the likes, what were their take? Ibn Mulakkin, what were their take? And the likes of Suyut, who came way after them. What occurred? Okay, you find that of contemporary somewhat, they take to the views of those who took a view that was not a view established from those before. With me? So that's the thing to be looked into. Not to say that this side is right or wrong, but why was that? Why was that the case? Then, so we can somewhat end, seeing that the time has caught to us. But instead you have a su'al that is considered to be mustahab, that preferred to be asked. That goes a little more in detail. That's for the tullabul ilm, that may go into those matters regarding asking of the shuyukh and the teachers. Things that are more detailed. Then you have some questions that are considered to be haram, that should not be asked. Certain things that should not be asked. So question go into various hukum based upon as mentioned. So that's concerning those matters. We'll end the hadith here, seeing that time of run out type of thing. And next week, inshallah ta'ala. So those are the things that they mentioned that of the thing that they were destroyed because of one also going against the Anbiya.